Okay, good evening, everybody. I apologize for that delay. Thank you so much for your patience. I am going to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum with 72 members out of a possible 97 present. Before I turn it over to your moderator, Seth Morton, I do have an announcement which is relevant for all of you who will be on or hoping to be on the ballot this November. For those of you who are reaching the expiration of your 2 or 1 year terms this coming November. All this information is in the town code. It will also be emailed out to you, but as this is likely the last meeting before this information is due back to me, I thought it was an appropriate time to share it. So, members may nominate themselves for re-election from the same district by giving written notice to such effect to the town clerk at least 10 weeks before the election. 10 weeks before November 5th is Tuesday, August 27th. I will send out an email to which I ask you reply, and that will suffice as written notification. So please be aware. If you don't know when your term expires, please look at the town website under the Representative Town Meeting, RTM tab. There's an Excel file, membership by district, where you will see the terms for every member. So if you need to double check, please look there. For the public and for anyone else whom you may know who's interested in joining the RTM, for new membership. For anyone new who is interested in joining the RTM and appearing on the November ballot, you must collect the signatures of 25 electors in your district between 8 and 12 weeks prior to the election, which is the window between August 13th and September 10th. The petition is available in the town clerk's office and also on the town website under the banner, How Do I, on the main page. And with that, I will turn it over to your moderator, Seth Morton.
Thank you, Krista. Well, as you can see, we saved the best till last. Rules Committee took a look at the list of things that we had to get done before the end of the year, and then we took a look at the time it was going to take to get it done, and we had to move the meeting tonight to this date so that we could get all of this stuff ready to go. Before I do have a change to the agenda. The Finance and Budget Committee in its debate realized that questions arising under 24-7 were actually answered in 24-8. So what I would like to do tonight is just swap them and move item 8 24/7 ahead of move 24/8 ahead of 24/7, because in the 11,000,007 answers to a lot of the 1.4 million in the next item will be answered. So I have an objection to that, or can we go ahead? No objection. Then we'll accept the agenda. Without objection, we accept the agenda as amended. And I'll take a motion to approve the minutes for May 13. Thank you. Amy? Clara, second? Great. Any corrections, additions, deletions, whatever? No? All right. All those in favor then of approving the minutes for May 13, say aye. Aye. Opposed? I hear none. Abstentions? I see none. Great. Now we move on to the first item, which is 24-4, a special appropriation for 2 school security infrastructure initiatives. Speaking on the behalf of the Education Committee, Ed Washeka.
Hi, I'm Ed Washeka, District 3, Chair of the Education Committee. I move the resolution 24-24. Do I have a second? With no objection, I will waive the reading of the resolution to approve $1,074,000 for 2 school security infrastructure initiatives. The committee This is going to be the briefest explanation you've ever heard. The committee met in executive session to discuss these improvements, and we will limit our summary tonight. Suffice it to say, these safety enhancements to harden the exterior of the buildings and improve communications were previously supported by the boards of finance, the selectmen, and the F&B committee. The committee voted unanimously with 12 of 14 members present to support the enhancements, and we suggest the full RTM do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
I am Jack Davis, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. Ed, thank you for your report. Our report will not be much different. 4 committee members participated in an executive session with members of the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Ed, and the RTM Education Committee. On June 10th, the full committee participated in an executive session with representatives of the Board of Ed to discuss these initiatives. This initiative will harden the exterior and improve communications. Due to the security nature of these 2 initiatives, I apologize, but I can't provide specific detail on either initiative. The committee did review and believe these did accomplish those terms used. The committee voted unanimously to approve this special capital appropriation and recommends the same to the full RTM.
Thank you, Jack. Any other committees? No. Town officials? No. Comments from the body? No. Yes. I said members of the RTM. Okay, now I'll go with electors, electors of the town. Are you an elector of the town or want to speak? Yes. Okay, give you 2 minutes.
My name is Luz Elena Bueno, and I live at 123 Hoyt Street. I was shocked last week when I witnessed how Jack Davis went on and on talking about these objections to the process to approve these funds, to harden the facades of the schools for security purpose. The United States has 57 times as many school shootings as all other major industrialized nations combined. So you could assume the process is not such a big deal on this issue. Furthermore, alarming was that immediately after, both Mr. Davis and Mr. Morton, with a smile, approved to include in tonight's agenda the $1.4 million in consulting fees for Great Island without any process or enough information. Jack Davis promised Mr. Morton that there will be more information tonight, but in fact, there is less. On the record, this promise happened, but tonight there is less information. While the package for the school is pages and pages long, I mean, we have something that is 1 paragraph long included. So I beg you tonight to approve the money for the school security as well as the deficit, because the deficit is just due to inflation, not any additional programs added or anything, any improvements. Thank you.
Miss, would you identify yourself and your address, please?
What is it?
Identify yourself. I didn't hear it. Oh, okay, she did?
121 Hoyt.
Okay, thanks.
Can I give a response since my name was mentioned?
Yes, yeah.
I wasn't going to raise this because I raised it at rules and in executive sessions. My concern with this process was very simple. A decision was made at one school, and as soon as that decision was made to do one of the enhancements, it meant that 4 of the schools were going to do it. And at that time, as soon as that decision was made, it became $1 million project. And the way this town operates is if there's $1 million project, the Board of Ed is responsible to going back to the Board of Selectmen, creating a building committee, and getting approval to do the project. That was not done. And so, in addition, there's been multiple security-related initiatives that have been done off-cycle. Now, I'm a big fan is that if you need something, do it off cycle. You need to do a boiler earlier, you need to do something else. But that's also not. I truly believe that this initiative should have been part of our budget process, which would have cost 9 basis points and would have freed up cash in our general fund so that potentially the Board of Finance had greater latitude with what they were doing. That's what I talked about. I wasn't going to raise it here. The Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance is going to address this during the summer. That's all I care about. And so that's what I talked about, just in case people wanted to know what I was talking about in my committee. Thank you.
Further comment? Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor, please rise. Opposed, please? See none. Abstentions? Don't see any. One abstention? Okay. That was recorded for you? Okay. All right. While they're counting here, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is 24-25, Board of Education Deficit. Speaking on behalf of the Education Committee, Ed Washeka.
Hi, I'm Ed Washeka, District 3, Chair of the Education Committee. I move the resolution 24-25. Do I have a second? Thank you. With no objection, I will waive the reading of the resolution to approve $181,250 to close the operating budget deficit of the Board of Education. The committee met virtually on June 13th to discuss this issue. Dr. Adley explained that these additional costs are largely driven by special education costs, including consultant services for paraprofessionals, pupil evaluations, out-of-district tuition, and the reduction in excess cost reimbursement, totaling close to $1.1 million. The board handled numerous transfers between accounts where there were surplus funds, and the administration also found other areas to make adjustments, resulting in the remaining deficit. You may remember that in prior budgets, the board had more flexibility in its budget using budget control, but that was reduced in this budget year. Our committee asked numerous questions and was largely satisfied with the answers, such that the committee voted unanimously with 12 of 14 members present to support the resolution, and we suggest the full RTM do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Committee Chair. Ed, thank you for your report. I'll try not to repeat some of the items that the RTM Education reported on. As noted, at the beginning of the year, there were unbudgeted items affecting the Board of Ed budget that we had approved. Increased registered behavior technicians, ABA, contracted support, there's $370,000. Outplacement tuition, including new legislation extending service to 22 for $220,000, 15 unilateral placements to start the year, another $600,000, offset by 5 IEP changes, reducing it by 106, and 1 moving out to reduce it further. Pupil evaluations increased it by another 208,000. All these major initiatives were $1 million that were not anticipated in the budget that we had approved. At the beginning of the year in August, the projected deficit was already $600,000. By September, it was $800,000. The administration and Board of Ed offset the projected deficit through soft freeze, health insurance savings, savings in union contracts, increases in ECR. Because our special ed went up, we ended up with more, even though our rate came down, all right? So we budgeted for 70, we only got 67, but we applied for more, so ultimately ECR was greater than what was in the budget. In addition, there was something else that is of some concern that I've had conversations with Jill on. In the past, part of this is without question special ed, and that's a responsibility of this town to make sure that we're complying with. But in general education, there was a concern. Every year, the Board of Ed has turnover and anticipates hiring replacements at a lower cost. We've been doing that for years. Such was not the case in fiscal year '24. And the turnover line item in RC 18 showed a deficit of $325,000, almost $145,000 greater than the special ed deficit. So ultimately, they were able to save over $343,000 in the general education to offset the turnover that we didn't achieve this year. It has been adjusted in next year's budget. And that I heard from Rich Rudel, so we won't experience the same thing. And the projected special ed costs. Overall, the administration did a wonderful job in finding savings throughout the year to bring this deficit down and should be applauded. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee voted unanimously to approve this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Other committees? No. Comments from members of the RTM? See no hands. Electors of the town? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please rise. Item 24-24 passed 72 in favor, 3 abstentions, no noes. No votes, please. And abstentions. Okay. While we're tallying that one, we'll move on to 24-26 easement approval for the properties part of Great Island. Speaking on behalf of PZ&H Committee, Amy Zabatakis.
Good evening, Amy Zabatakis, District 5, Chair of RTM Planning, Zoning, and Housing. I move Resolution 2426 approving the easements from 88 Hanson Road, 100 Hanson Road, and 410 Hollow Tree Ridge Road. Do I have a second? Thank you. Without objection, I'll waive reading of the resolution. On June 13th, the Planning, Zoning, and Housing Committee held a meeting with 9 of our 14-member committee present, representing a quorum. We had Darren Ostafine and Ed Gentile of the Department of Public Works join our meeting, and they outlined the status of the Hanson Road Bridge Replacement Project and explained the purpose of these easements. Copies of the easements were presented to the PZ&H at that time, and they also were available to you in today's meeting package. And as a reminder, since I had forgotten, we did approve already the funding relating to the project as a whole. What we're voting on right now is merely approving the town obtaining easements on these 3 properties, 3 of which are temporary easements and 2 of which will be permanent easements. So the temporary construction easements are required during the construction period so that the town can bypass the river, also storage of equipment, etc. On 2 of the lots, 88 Hanson Road and 410 Hollow Tree Ridge Road, a permanent easement is required Due to the closeness of these properties to the bridge itself, we need a permanent easement. The town needs a permanent easement to continue to work on the bridge, also for a guardrail on the other side that will need to be installed. As part of the temporary easements, there will be some disruption to the landscaping in the area. There is a landscaping plan in place. Payment for the additional plantings, et cetera, with that landscaping plan are part of the full plan expense, which has already been presented. The cost of the easements themselves was determined by an independent appraiser. The cost for all three properties is $26,860. And the property owners have all agreed to the terms of these easements as well as the price that's being paid. Along with all the other costs, there will be, they'll all be incorporated into that total amount that's already been approved, which will be covered 50% by state grants and 50% by the town. These easements were approved by the Board of Selectmen on June 3rd, and there was a mandatory referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 23rd, which was positive as well. The PZ&H Committee voted unanimously in favor of approving the easements and encourages the RTM to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
This is like a budget meeting for me tonight, except no slides. Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Committee. Amy, thank you for the report explaining the easements. I continue to learn every time you get up here and talk about real estate. At our January 24th RTM meeting, this body approved Resolution 24-1, authorizing the appropriation and bonding of $2,067,250 for the Hanson Road project. As Amy noted, the town will obtain a 50% reimbursement for this project. Also, these easements that we're paying for were included in that original amount, so there's no incremental cost to the town for that. They also qualify for the 50% reimbursement as part of the state grant. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee approved this resolution and unanimously and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Other committees? No? Members of the body, any comments? See no hands. Electors of the town? Town officials, wouldn't want to leave you out. Seeing none, ready to vote? All those in favor, please rise. Item 24-25 passed 74 in favor, no noes, 1 abstention. For our next item, again, we're going to swap and bring 24-28 first. So, speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis. Big night, Jack.
Yeah. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. I move 2428 resolution of the RTM of the Town of Darien amending the appropriation and bond authorization of $103,465,000 for the purchase of 60 acres known as Great Island to decrease the appropriation and bond authorization by $11,693,633. Do I have a second? I have Amy. If there's no objections, I'll waive the reading of the resolution. I asked Seth to move this forward based upon our conversation in F&B, and I hope after I give some information, you'll see why. Typically, to rescind a previous authorized but unissued bond authorization, the Board of Finance would not require RTM approval. However, in those cases, the project is complete and all the expenses have been paid. Such is not the case with the purchase of Great Island, as access and remediation are still active. On June 27, 2022, the RTM approved Resolution 2221, authorizing the appropriation and bonding for the purchase of Great Island in the amount of $103,465,000. Tonight, the RTM is revising that authorization for the appropriation and bonding to be $91,771,367, thereby reducing the appropriation and its authorization by $11,693,633. We're not rescinding an $11 million amount. We're amending our original bond appropriation to now be $91 million and change. The town has already issued $91,771,366 in debt, which $49 million is bond anticipation notes, and the remaining balance is general obligation bond. This effectively closes the chapter on the purchase, access, remediation of Great Island. This now has any new actions going on in Great Island, going through the process of going to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and to the RTM. This is what you've been asking for. This is what has been delivered to us by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. That still means work has to be done. There's still widening of the roads, there's still remediation, over $1 million of remediation that hasn't been spent. So this increases the transparency that the RTM has been asking, and it closes the chapter on the $103 million. Providing the backup resolution, the purchase price for Great Island was $85 million plus change. Allocated was about $6,400,000, of which $1.9 million has already been spent on the purchase of the traffic circle, other access, and some environmental expenses, including testing and remediation. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee voted unanimously to reduce the prior appropriation and bond authorization from $103,465,000 to $91,771,366 and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other committees? No. Town officials? Members of the body? Electors of the town? We're ready to vote. All those in favor, please. Oh, wait a minute. Clara, I see a hand.
Just asking, just to clarify, we're voting on 24-28 now.
We're voting on exactly 24-28.
Okay, thank you.
Because that'll help when you're collecting the votes. No votes, please. Abstentions? I see none. Okay. While we're counting, item 24-26 on the easements passed 73 in favor, 1 abstention. Next item is 24-27, special appropriation for Great Island. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. I move 24-27 resolution appropriating $1,425,000 to develop a master plan to utilize and repurpose 60 acres of Long Island Sound waterfront property and authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes in the amount of $1,425,000 to meet said appropriation. Do I have a second? I have Jenny. If there's no objection, I waive the reading of the resolution. Now you might be able to see why I wanted to swap this, because this is our first action on what's going on in Great Island that we're looking at that wasn't part of the original appropriation. This report is going to address the financial aspects of the appropriation. Our RTM representative, Mark Adeletta, who's on the Great Island Committee, and Monica McNally can provide details on the contract, much better than I can. Before I get started, I want to remind everyone on the resolution being addressed, as well as the purview of the RTM on this. This resolution is funding solely Phase 1 and Phase 2 parts of developing the master plan. Phase 3, 4, 5, 7, or whatever comes afterwards are not part of this resolution, and so we should stay to the topic. In addition, the Board of Finance and the RTM are solely approving an appropriation and bonding to fund that appropriation. It's the sole purview of the Board of Selectmen to approve the vendor selection and negotiate the terms and conditions of the contract, not ours. The RTM and Board of Finance did have input in the development of the RFPs, the review of the finalists, and the contract through our representatives on the Great Island Advisory Committee. It is important to ensure that the what the RTM expects is completed and included in the final contract, and F&B, from our perspective, found the key elements, including governance and public engagement, are very much part of the RFP and part of this contract. The cost breakdowns. The revised Reed Hildebrand contract is $1,362,475. Readiness and Mead is $45,000, but there's a reduction based upon their work for $20,000. We always have bond fees of $5,000, and we have a very small contingency here, so they better watch their numbers, of only $32,000. That totals $1,425,000. Payments will be made over a 12 to 16 month. Readiness and Mead will be our owner representative representing the town, providing expertise and relieve some of the time constraints that have been put on the Public Works Department. A couple of other things that I want to mention. Some might be a bit surprised when you open your tax bill come July. I've already heard from our tax collector that there's been some surprises. Let me say that Great Island is not responsible for that tax increase. The interest from fiscal year 24 to 25 is relatively the same. We're not paying principal on any of them, so the cost and what was included in the taxes are the same. The only significant increase is about $225,000 to make up for lost revenue from the tenants that are no longer there, and that cost about 2 basis points. This contract and approval that will either start in 26 or 27, depending upon when we go out for bonding, will have the effect of adding 1 basis point to your taxes. So when you open it, this isn't because of Great Island, this is because of what it costs to run this town. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee voted unanimously to approve the appropriation and bonding authorization and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other committees? Town officials? Members of the body? Yes, Mark. Mark's our representative to the Great Island Committee.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Seth. And thank you, Jack, for that tee-up. Good evening. Mark Adeletta, District 5, and as was just said, I'm your elected representative to the Great Island Advisory Committee, which I will refer to as GIAC to save a little bit of time. Tonight, I hope to add some insight and perspective over and above the information already provided in your packets. Let me stop right there. Can everyone hear me okay? No one? Okay. Recall the Board of Selectmen established the GIAC less than a year ago on July 3rd of last year. The committee included 4 resident members, as well as representatives of the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, Park and Rec Commission, and of course, this body. The value of this diverse board representation soon became clear to me. The committee has been extremely busy since the first meeting actually took place on July 19th of last year. Early on, space on the town website was set up to facilitate both communication and transparency with regard to the activities of the GIAC. Specifically, at the town website, you go, if you haven't been there, and I know many of you have been, you go to town government, you go to advisory appointments, and GIAC is listed there. There you can find the the agendas, the minutes, the access rules, various FAQs that have been distributed over the months. In addition, many of you are aware the GIAC mailbox was established and can be accessed via the same point on the website or directly at greatisland@darien.ct.gov. Any emails submitted to the GIAC were shared via this mailbox, and there were many. Since the kickoff, there have been approximately 17 GIAC meetings. There have been one or two public receptions at Great Island, during the winter opening of access. There have been working sessions. There have been 6 to 7 hours of consultant interviews. There have been 3 to 4 reference checks per member, checking the references who submitted RFPs, plus countless hours of RFQ and RFP review. Your packet pointed out that the RFQ process began in earnest in January. I note professional project development expertise of our resident members, Dan Kolakowski and Jeff Tybel, working with town staff and the broader committee, proved immensely valuable as we all worked to identify a landscape architecture firm. As you know, the proposals were due in February 21st, and while waiting for the RFQ proposals, a ranking sheet was created by the committee. This was a matrix of various variables to allow consistent evaluation across multiple proposals. Ultimately, 16 firms responded to the RFQ. Each submitted a comprehensive proposal that included company overview, qualifications of team members. In addition, the proposals highlighted typically case studies, experience in master planning, budgeting, scheduling strategies, management of ecological impact, regulatory approvals, etc. To give you a sense, these responses were typically 60 to, in some cases, over 200 pages. You multiply that by 16 responses, you get the picture. It's a stack, no exaggeration, about that big. Your package notes the RFQ yielded innovative approaches to the public engagement and a variety of possible funding strategies and efficient governance, planning, etc. I was struck by the variety and the detail of these approaches and valued these elements in aligning the project with the community's expectations, securing a sustainable funding approach, and in ensuring a project oversight. Members reviewed, as I said, each of the 16 proposals and submitted their respective rankings via the matrix I mentioned a moment ago. These were shared among the committee members. In parallel, the committee members were also working with staff to create request for proposal. The RFP was distributed to the top 6 firms back in March 21st, and each of these firms was provided an individual tour of Great Island of approximately 2 hours. Your packet notes that 97 questions were received and answered from those visits and from the consultants in general. On April 18th, the bids were opened. By now you know the range of the master plan services for phases 1 and 2 ranged from $870,000 to $1.9 million. That was the band received. The next step was to review the bids, fee proposals, and schedule interviews for the finalists. The committee drafted, again, this time 16 interview questions. And these questions were used to ensure the consistency during the interviews, which took place on May 1st and 2nd. Each lasted about 2 hours. Following the interviews, 4 case studies per consultant were chosen for reference checks. These were done by the committee members in pairs. And this was done to help maintain the quality and the consistency of the feedback gathered during those reference checks. I personally found this very informative. I happened to be on the team interviewing Reed Hildebrand references. The feedback gathered cemented in my mind that RH, Reed Hildebrand, as a lead candidate. The feedback consistently cited strong community engagement, in a couple of instances cited as exceeding expectations, highest quality service, a very solid grasp of the interplay between financial and governance decisioning. And the case studies, in my opinion, were amongst the most comparable to our GI, our Great Island opportunity. By the end of May, the GIAC had voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen Reed Hildebrand as the master plan consultant. In my opinion, the difference among the firms on certain criterion was perhaps marginal. I observed members of the committee may have had a different lead candidate on a particular criterion. Remember, we had we had a number of criterion we were utilizing, but none seemed to have material opposition to the selection. As you know from your packet, on May 29, the GIAC voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen Redness and Mead. Jack just mentioned that, so I'm going to skip over that section. So Jack also mentioned that this appropriation covers 2 phases, and these 2 phases will establish a long-term vision for Great Island, specifically just those 2 phases. Phase 1 is called Creating the Vision. What's covered under that category? Project familiarization, that's gathering information, vision and development, and public and stakeholder review and input. Phase 2 is the actual creating the master plan and the concept design. There's a lot more steps to that phase. That involves public outreach. This is in no particular order, just pedestrian access circulation, building assessment, vehicular access and circulation, site features, building assessment, I don't know if I said that, preservation, landscaping, hard and soft surface paving, coastal areas, site utility infrastructure, revenue generating activities, funding strategies, governance and structure, a preliminary conceptual design and a report, a cost estimate of development, a phasing strategy, various town approvals, and final concept design and report. I said a lot there. None of this involves the actual preparation of construction documents or anything like that. These 2 phases are limited to design. So why did the GIAC choose Reed Hildebrand? Part of it was comprehensive community engagement. Reed Hildebrand proposed a robust community engagement strategy right from the get-go to ensure a diverse range of voices are heard. Their plan includes workshops, informal displays, experiential activities, focus group conversations, digital presence to gather community feedback, building a consensus, and co-creating a shared vision. So what are these workshops? They will involve a combination of learning about the property sharing scenarios for the future and activities that help the residents evaluate the options for what could happen depending on the improvements are organized. One of these workshops will likely be in Town Hall. The second hopefully could be on Great Island. I understand that's what the experiential relates to. And then a summary of the related material published, and the residents will be surveyed about the ideas and the considerations presented. In parallel, digital presence will establish focus areas in particular, likely to include conservation and ecology, governance and public funding, infrastructure and operations, revenue and partnership, recreation and culture. Reason number 2, financial planning. Their plan was well thought out, and they brought in a consultant, JLP&D, who will assist in developing a financing and governance strategies. This includes revenue generation, programming operations, and future funding models. 3, Reed Hildebrand assembled a team predominantly from Connecticut, all experienced in key areas like accessibility, ecological integrity, maintenance. This team's experience ensures that Great Island's unique qualities will be preserved. 4, Reed Hildebrand excels at balancing historical preservation with modern needs. Their approach respects Great Island's historical nature and ecological systems while adapting landscape to meet the needs of Darien community. And lastly, 5, the firm has extensive experience rejuvenating cultural landscapes. They cited a couple of examples specifically, one labeled Franklin Park Action Plan. Jack already covered the fee proposal, so I'm going to skip that. So in conclusion, I want to thank every member of the committee. Each has worked collaboratively and transparently. I believe each has the best interest of the broader Darien community at heart. I also applaud the chair for her dedication and vigor in keeping this effort moving swiftly, on task, and direct coordination with town staff. I'm very much looking forward to the next phase. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Great report. Any others from the body? Anyone? Yes, Rolf.
My name is Rolf Oben, District 4, living on Archer Lane here in Darien. First of all, I'd like to thank the Great Island Advisory Committee for all their efforts and all the work that they put in to getting us to where we are here today. I'd like to recognize Jack bringing to the attention of the RTM that this is our first expenditure outside of the bonding that was agreed to way back when we voted several years ago. So this is a precedent as to how we're starting to move forward. And I would like to ask certain questions, one of which is, first of all, did anybody get a copy of the request for proposal that went out to the bidders for this contract? Did anybody get a copy of that?
Mark, are you?
Sorry? It's on the website, but was it in the packet? No. Okay.
It's on the website.
All right, I'm talking about what was in the packet sent to the RTM for tonight's meeting.
No, it was posted.
No, it wasn't there.
Yeah, we didn't think
Was
of it.
there a copy of the contract proposals from the two advisors that were apparently now selected, Redness and Mead and Reed, whatever the other? Yeah.
Yeah, we did post it on the website.
Well, all right.
And missed
But
it.
was it with the packet?
No, I understand.
No, it was not with the packet. So unless you knew and went out there and looked for it and read it, you wouldn't know the particulars that are in those documents. The only thing you would know is what's been narrated here. And so my point is that I'm looking for details in RTM packets, not, well, you can go look at the website, you can go here, you can go there. That website is, in my opinion, not user-friendly, okay? I don't want to spend hours and hours going out looking on the website for this or that, so on and so forth. Okay, that's my first point, okay? The other issue is, whenever we spend anything over $1 million, as Jack alluded to earlier, I think that it should be closely evaluated with respect to where it fits in priorities. What's important, what must be done now, as opposed to what should be scheduled to be done over the course of time. And you know, this is to develop a master plan, but this is not the first master plan that the town of Darien has ever put together. There was a master plan that was initiated back in 2017 for the Parks and Recreation. That master plan was created and developed and finalized in the early part of 2018. And one of the projects that was highlighted as being in need of attention was the Pear Tree Point Beach project. And that project remains uninitiated, if you will, in terms of action to this day. The only thing that really has been accomplished so far has been the wisdom that was done to file for the permits. Those permits were issued 18 months ago, and we're still waiting for action to move forward on that project. And that will be a very involved project. It was estimated to be at $6.5 million. I think the last update was a little more than 6 months ago. So when it is finally put out to bid, it'll probably be more than that. I know everybody's saying, well, what does that got to do with the Great Island? Well, to me, it has to do with what are the priorities. There's deadlines on those permits. They're going to expire in 2017. So this is not something that we can kind of get to later. This is kind of something that we have to get to now. I understand that there has been a proposal put forward by the consultant on what it would take to put out the bid specifications. I understand that was finalized last week and submitted for approval. Is yet to be approved.
Ralph,
Bidding is yet to take place.
Great Islands.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about spending money, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing what we're spending money on
I think you made your
and
point,
where
but-
the urgency exists. And this, to me, is not an urgent situation, certainly not in comparison to what the pending problems are at Pear Tree Point Beach. So I personally don't think that this is something we have to press on with any urgency at this particular time. Not like the urgency that I think should exist for Pear Tree Point Beach.
Thank you, Ralph. Any other folks from the body? Electors of the town? Yes, ma'am. Two minutes.
Luz Elena Bueno, 123 Hoyt Street. You may not know what you're voting on tonight. The vote for $1.43 million in consulting fees for a second master plan of Great Island is really a vote for an over $60 million project, which is what the consultants Monica Picht, Reed Hildebrand estimate would cost to implement what they would decide. But that was not included in the agenda tonight. It was an appendix 24 pages deep into the Board of Selectmen's agenda last week. The process has been shrouded in secrecy, from the consulting fee amount to what they asked the consultants for. The value of the consultant fee was absent from every agenda until less than a week ago, and we still don't know what we would get for more than $60 million if you approve this special appropriation for Great Island tonight. Great Island is perfect. I actually walk often there. The previous families, it was not because of lack of money that they didn't put additional statues in the island. The families that owned it thought it was perfect and they kept it like that. We all know they could afford landscape architects and consultants. In fact, the main house, the gardens, have fountains and sculptures. We don't need to add any more. Whatever that we do is in detriment to its beauty and our finances. They cut $2 million this year from the schools because that is what Monica was originally asking for consulting fees. So what is going to happen next year? Are they going to try to cut the school budget by $30 million to cover the $60 million project in Great Island that has to be completed in 3 years, or we lose the $1.4 million? I made mistakes this year as I was learning this process, and I obviously am not an English speaker, which I will not make next year. I will be organized, and I'm doing everything I can to have young families involved in this process. Their number one priority is the school. It is wrong to cut the school budget below inflation to fulfill someone's delusion of grandiosity. So if you all vote tonight to create a master plan that will cost $60 million to implement in Great Island, we will have to raise taxes because it will not come out of the school budget. Now, I'm going to read a question that someone sent me, a resident of the town sent me. What residents or their firms are making money from these political consulting contracts? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other electors of the town? Yes, David, being a member of the RTM.
Thank you, Seth. David Bain from District 5. I just have a question for Mr. Oben. Is he recommending that we vote against the resolution tonight? I agree with much of what you say, but I wasn't clear as to what your position was.
I've thought about this quite a bit, and while I didn't say it earlier, the thought has crossed my mind that I would rather postpone or hold this vote until the Pear Tree Point project is approved, financed, with a building committee assigned to move that project forward before we vote on this for the Great Island. And then we can take it up after the Pear Tree Point Beach program is intact. That's my feeling, but that's only my feeling. Of course, everybody has their own opinion.
Okay, so there's no motion here.
There's no motion on my
That's what I asked. Okay. Thank you, Ralph.
There's
I
no
got
motion
it.
on my part,
Just
but anybody
making-
else who has a
making
similar
sure.
feeling can certainly step forward.
All right, thank you. All right, any other comments? Clara?
I'm Clara Sartori, District 2. 2 speakers ago, a woman made a lot of comments that I would like to know, kind of the lady from 123 Hoyt Street. Are those comments about, you know, some of the things she said, can anybody refute them or at least clarify what perhaps is really going on?
Jack? I know.
I'm glad that Clara was here,
He was just
because if you were
testing.
here, I'd have to move it down.
Thank you, Jack. Let's go.
Look, there was a lot of information put in the package for the consultants that was presented to the Board of Selectmen. But they're dealing with Phase 3 and Phase 4. Now, from the information we currently have, one would typically call the information that was presented in that package a swag. And just for anybody who doesn't know what those letters are, it's a scientific, wild, but guess. You thought I would use the other one. I won't.
I'm listening, Jack.
However, I'd say based upon the information we have, that wasn't even a swag. It was a wag. They put something out to say, this is what it could be. But we haven't come up with a plan. We haven't articulated what those are. And so those numbers are out there, but they're not relevant. We won't know what those numbers are until we complete the plan. And then it will go through various processes here. Now, I do want to also say, Ralph, I agree with you that we have to prioritize things.
You can make the motion.
But my motion is different than yours. I think we have too many silos operating here. Silos.
Oh, yeah.
We have a park and rec silo, we have a town silo, we have a school silo, we have a Great Island silo, and we have all this open space. And nobody has really sat down and said, what does each of these open spaces have? What do we want them to have? What are the personality? And then what are the priorities of what we want to develop? Now that's something that I hope that we can work on during the summer, all right? But there's certain things we have to do now. I mean, there's certain things that we should be looking at. But then, by the way, once you prioritize them, they shouldn't be prioritized that the number one in each of those silos gets done. It's what's the number 1, 2, and 3 for the town. Because at the end of the day, these are all town properties. And so that's something I've been talking about. I'm not dropping it. I agree with some of what you said. That being said, I'm very much in favor of moving forward with this master plan because I think it's essential. I think that there's more work that needs to be done on Pear Tree as well as Weed Beach to determine where they fit into the total. So I am going to be voting in favor of this, and everyone else can make up their mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Other comments? I see none. Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Item 24-28 passed 70 in favor, 3 abstentions. No votes, please. Noes. Okay, and abstentions. All right. Great. While we're counting, we'll move to 24-29, approve the amendment of the Town of Darien Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program Agreement. Speaking on behalf of Finance and Budget, Jack Davis.
I'm looking for my glasses, I apologize. Well, we'll do this without glasses. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. I move 2429, resolution of the RTM of the Town of Darien to approve an amendment to the CPACE agreement between the Town of Darien and the CT Green Bank. Do I have a second? Take Mark over there. If there's no objection, I'll waive the reading of the resolution. This is an administrative resolution. A bit of history is appropriate. The Town of Darien signed an agreement with the Green Bank in 2014. The CT Green Bank provides financial incentives and tax credits to investors that finance in green applications for both businesses and households. Initially, the state legislature thought it best for the towns to collect their CPACE tax assessments. Bad idea. In 2021, the RTM approved amendments to this agreement, the original one, in Resolution 21-8 at our meeting on March 15, 2021. That amendment no longer required municipalities to collect payments, as the Greenbank desired to collect payments directly. Basically, they were getting a little tired of waiting only 6 months, every 6 months, which is when tax is done, and then get it. Made no sense. And quite honestly, it was costing the town more money than they were paying us to do this. So it saved the town money. As the town has an agreement with the Greenbank, all modifications need to be approved by the Board of Selectmen in this body, allowing commercial properties to participate in the program. Therefore, this is more of an administrative review and approval than one requiring additional work by the town. The legal review noted the following changes to the agreement, and I'm quoting. While the majority of the changes are minor and not substantive, for example, substituting terms such as Greenbank for the term authority, adding provisions to allow for third-party financing in accord with the statute, referencing the statute's requirements generally rather than specifying them in the agreement, the following changes are more substantive. A, where under the original agreement the town collected the benefit assessment payments and forwarded them to the Greenbank, under the amendment the town will no longer collect them, as the Greenbank will do that. Also, the $500 annual fee payable to the town for such services has been removed. That we did in 21. B, the original agreement required Greenbank to provide the town with annual reports on the commercial properties who qualified and the status of their financing agreements and payments made. This requirement has been removed. C, the address for notices to the Greenbank has been changed. Based upon legal counsel's advice, he's right there. He recommends that we authorize the first selectman to sign the amendments. The RTM Finance and Budget reviewed the legal opinion presented by Town Council and unanimously approved the amendments and authorizes the first selectman or their designee to sign the amended agreement and recommends the approval of this resolution to the full RTM. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Any other committees? See none. Town officials? See none. Comments from the body? See none. Electors of the town? Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Item 24-27 passed 61 in favor, 7 noes, 5 abstentions. No votes, please. Oh, how about
No,
abstentions? 1, there you go. Great. All right, while we're putting the numbers together, we'll move to item 24-30, approve reimbursement of the state for the Central Office Mather Center project. Jack Davis, Finance and Budget Committee.
Give me a second. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Committee Chair. I move 2430 to consider the approval of a special appropriation of $67,514 to refund the state grant for the Central Office Facility, Mather Center, to the state of Connecticut. Do I have a second? I'll take our dear friend Frank. If there's no objection, I will waive the reading of the resolution. This relates to the project that just keeps on giving. The Shuffle project was creating the senior center and moving the Board of Ed to the former Darien Library. Certain costs were available for reimbursement from the Connecticut state grants. The final costs were paid in 2016, and the town received $583,296 in grants. An audit was completed by the state in 2019. The original request for reimbursement was $124,250. The Board of Ed and town worked and provided additional information to the State Department of Administrative Services Office of Grant Administration. The CT Administration Services notified the Board of Ed in a letter dated April 25th, 2024, that the final determination for the final grant was $515,782 versus the $883,296, resulting in an overpayment from the state to the town in the amount of $67,514. Payment is due, as advised in the letter, no later than July 31st, 2024. The Board of Selectmen approved this special appropriation on May 6th, and the Board of Finance approved on May 14th. The RTM F&B Committee reviewed the documentation and unanimously approved this resolution to reimburse the state grant by $67,514 and recommends the same to the full RTM. And hopefully, we're done with the shuffle.
I must note for a second that Mr. Davis has had a big night tonight. A lot of work to do all of that, so thank you, Jack. Other committees? Of town officials? No. Members of the body? Comments? Electors of the town? See none? Looks like we're ready to vote. All in favor, please rise. No votes, please. And abstentions. See none? Okay, while we're counting up everything, next item is adding the Pledge of Allegiance to the RTM agenda. Sponsor of this is Susan Marks. Susan.
Sometimes you have to improvise and bring your own. Good evening. My name is Susan Marks. I'm a member of District 5. I stand before you to move Resolution 2431. Do I have a second? Second. Without objection, I will waive the reading of the resolution.
I object.
Okay. So I read it? Okay.
Wait a minute, does he have a, no.
Do you guys have a second? Or?
Yeah, do you have a second? I'll second. I don't think you need one. No, go ahead.
Resolution 2431, resolution of the representative town meeting of the town of Darien to provide for the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance at all regular and special meetings of said representative town meeting. Whereas, pursuant to Part 4, Section 2 of the Code of Ordinances, resolutions to be included in the agenda may be submitted by the Board of Selectmen, any other elected town board, the moderator, or upon written application of 50 electors. And these items must be submitted to the town clerk in a timely fashion. And whereas the Darien Town Clerk has received a written application from at least 50 electors requesting that there appear on the next agenda of the representative town meeting a resolution calling for the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of each meeting of the representative town meeting, and whereas reciting the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of a legislative meeting has been a practice for many years by the United States Congress, the General Assembly of the State of Connecticut, as well as many municipalities within the state of Connecticut. Now, therefore, be it resolved that at any regular or special meeting of the Darien Representative Town Meeting, it will begin with the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag and to the United States of America. In its simple forms, the resolution that we should be voting on tonight enables the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of our RTM meetings. Hopefully, you all read my memo to the moderator in your materials. Allow me to give you a short summary. As a former member of the Darien Board of Selectmen for 6 years, I observed the positive impact of reciting the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of each meeting. This simple act fostered a sense of unity, guided our decisions and choices, and reminded us of our collective mission and responsibility to our community. When I rejoined the RTM in mid-2023, I began to see the value of introducing the reciting of the pledge at the beginning of RTM meetings. I asked the moderator to add it to the Rules Committee meeting agenda. After an initial discussion in February of 2024 within the RTM Rules Committee, no action was taken. I believe the RTM community, our RTM, that is assembled here tonight should have the opportunity to exercise your right to vote on this topic. And I disagree with anyone who would attempt to postpone or table this resolution. As a statement of fact, over the past 35 years, I've worked with many of you on projects and events in Darien. These include school PTOs, school referendums, the 2020 Bicentennial Committee, the Darien Fireworks, the Community Fund Allocation Committee, the Darien Senior Housing Initiative, the Methodist Family Center Preschool, and the Norotan Yacht Club Board. I am proud of all the work we've accomplished. Equally important was our common driving force, improving the lives of Darien residents. We have successfully prioritized this great work over the good of political agendas, party affiliation, or any other political motivation. The following are some reasons why I'm asking tonight for your support to vote yes on the resolution. Current practices. The pledge is recited before conducting business in government meetings in Darien, in other towns and cities in Connecticut, as well as Connecticut General Assembly and our federal government legislative bodies. Tradition. The pledge has been a long-standing tradition in the United States dating back to the late 19th century. Its recitation at government meetings continues this tradition and reinforces its importance in American civic life. A look at the murals in this room remind us of the timeless nature of our work. The resolution allows RTM members to stand and recite the pledge, but does not require members to do so. It is optional. For the same reasons I believe reciting the pledge is important, I also respect the right of a member to opt out for the reasons of their choosing. I've discussed this resolution with many fellow RTMers, and I'm pleased we have so much agreement. That said, we must each view the pledge in our own way. Regardless of one's feelings on the wording, the pledge pays respect to those that have served our country and those that are currently serving, including those that have paid the ultimate price for our freedom. The freedom extends to how we live our lives, our freedom to assemble as RTM members and govern, and even our freedom to take exception with the wording within it. Most important, the pledge can unite us to a more powerful common good within the RTM, our town, across Connecticut, and the United States. Some might argue that such a pledge is unnecessary or untimely, considering the highly politicized setting in this country. To those arguments, I remind my fellow RTM members, it is for those very reasons that we should take this opportunity now to unite and lead our community in the direct expression of our shared values. The pledge contributes value by setting the tone and alignment towards a better collective positive outcome. You've heard my case reciting the Pledge of Allegiance at future RTM meetings. Please join me and vote yes for this resolution.
Thank you, Susan. There are no committees of the RTM assigned to this item, so I'll go directly to comments from the body. Yes, Frank. 5 minutes.
My name is Frank Kemp, District 4.
He said he timed it, so I was safe.
These remarks time out at just under 4 minutes, so bear with me. Mr. Moderator, I recommend that my colleagues on the RTM reject this motion, which requires a mandatory public display of patriotism at all meetings of this body. I don't weigh very heavily the fact that other towns are doing this, and note that the Board of Selectmen is the only public body that observes this custom in our town. When patriotism is mentioned, the topic quickly moves to the recognition of veterans. As an Army veteran myself, I was not a desk clerk. I served an Army infantry division in Korea. As such, I think I have a feel for patriotism, as we all do. In the light of that experience and the subsequent adventures, I recoil at the prospect of encouraging cheap patriotism. I think you can be patriotic by public service, by running for election for public office, serving on a voluntary committee, testifying at a public hearing. That's not cheap patriotism. I think you can be patriotic by doing community outreach through person to person, through your place of worship, through volunteer work. That's patriotic. That's doing some good for the community and, of course, the nation. That's not cheap patriotism. You can be patriotic by working with kids, disadvantaged people, the underserved and disabled. That's hardly cheap patriotism. You can be patriotic by random acts of kindness, giving an extra $20 to the wounded warrior guy who sits out in front of Palmer's, or the Santa ringing the bell for the Salvation Army or the VFW. When we stop to acknowledge them, engage them, and make a contribution, we salute them by actually helping their cause rather than mumbling a few words in a hot auditorium. That's the way to show thanks to the military. That's not cheap patriotism, that's real. So for us, I just think that there's so many ways that you can be patriotic, and that, spoiler alert, here's the punchline. I don't believe that we need to attest our patriotism on a routine basis by rote, as if we were at a ball game or in middle school. And finally, I pray that anyone who may join me in disapproving this motion will not be relegated as being unpatriotic. This has happened in communities such as ours, when partisan politics can run high. I know this, as I've already been called out on a Facebook page as a result of my earlier remarks at Rules. Look, our RTM is not partisan, and as it should be. However, on a matter like this, it is far too easy to get on a soapbox, work up some indignation, and be unkind to the opposition. I don't want that happening here. Now, let me add, if this motion passes, I certainly will be pledging with the rest of you. Of course I will. While this is debated, I'll debate. But when the vote is taken and approved, I'll abide by the decision. That's a patriotic thing to do. I love my country, and I respect its traditions, and I respect the will of the majority once a fair vote is taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Other comments? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jackie Miller, District 2. I also want to encourage the body to vote against this resolution. I believe that those who brought the motion forward have the best intentions in seeking a symbolic and patriotic gesture to bring our body together. But I believe that adding the pledge actually drives a wedge between those who support it and those who question it. Indeed, the pledge has been wielded as a political cudgel by Newt Gingrich, George H.W. Bush, Mitt Romney, and Donald Trump, all of whom have claimed that any criticism of the pledge is un-American. And yet there is much we should question or at least be aware of if we decide to adopt the pledge. Does it matter that the pledge was originally conceived as a profit-making scheme to sell flags to schools? Or that its author espoused nativism and bigotry and viewed the pledge as a way to, quote, mobilize the masses to support primary American doctrines, end quote, lest America become, quote, the dumping ground of Europe, end quote. Does it matter that many people feel excluded and troubled by the under God that was added to the pledge in response to the xenophobic McCarthyism that swept our country in the 1950s? Does it matter that a current political candidate recorded a version of the pledge that features inmates from the attack against the Capitol on January 6th that he sells for profit?
Ma'am, I have a question. Are you alleging that that's the reason this is on here, that these...
No.
Okay, just point of clarification.
As I said when I began, I believe that the people who brought this motion have the best of intentions. But I think that there are things we need to be aware of when we make this decision. And I don't think that people are aware of the background of the pledge entirely because of this history of questioning it or talking about it are characterized as un-American. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of these connections. I believe that these things do matter and that they make the pledge unsuitable for our body at this time. I'm grateful for the RTM and its nonpartisan nature, and I hope you will agree to preserve that collegiality and not move forward with the adoption of the pledge at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
David Bain, District 5, and I too join the two prior speakers in opposing this resolution. I find it both unnecessary and insufficient. I'm also concerned, as our two prior speakers have mentioned, that it does erode the bipartisan nature of this body. First, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance is unnecessary because we all swore an oath to the Constitution and to the laws of the state of Connecticut and the United States when we joined this body. There's no reason that we need to speak the pledge. It's that oath that we come to fulfill here every time we meet and in every committee that we meet. I ask, what does saying the Pledge of Allegiance add to that oath that we've already taken? I first joined the RTM in 2003, and I've been on this body for many years and served on the Board of Selectmen. And I can't think of a single vote that would have changed as a result of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. It's also insufficient because the Pledge of Allegiance makes no reference to the Constitution or the laws of the United States or the laws of Connecticut, and that's what we're here to serve and enforce and uphold. As legislatures, it's our body, it's the federal and state constitution to which we owe our fealty. Indeed, the Pledge of Allegiance is not even an oath or an affirmation that's binding in any way. Instead, the Pledge of Allegiance is an unenforceable and, in fact, somewhat ambiguous pledge. Today, in fact, I'm sure I did and many of you received an unsigned letter from some constituent who invoked the Pledge of Allegiance and argued that it requires that we ban all surveillance methods in this town, license plate readers, security cameras. The Pledge of Allegiance is like a Rorschach test. It's what you think it is. And I just don't think it adds anything to this body. On the other hand, the oath that we took, the oath of office that we took, is very clear. We swore that we would uphold the laws of the state and the federal government. If this body really thinks that some formulaic words are necessary before we start our meetings, then I suggest that we re-swear our oath of office before we start each meeting. Those words have meaning. Those words give a purpose for why we're here. The Pledge of Allegiance simply doesn't do that. My second point, and I'll keep this brief because it's already been stated, is I do have concerns that this vote and this debate tonight will be used in the future for partisan purposes. And that's not the nature of this body. Many of us here are very partisan people when we're outside the RTM, and that's fine. But we check that partisanship when we walk through that door. And that's very important. And those of us who've been here for a long time know how important it is. So I really urge everyone here to think long and hard. Do we need the Pledge of Allegiance? What does it add to this body? And if it really comes to it, and this really comes down to why we're here, then why not re-swear our oath of office? I'd much prefer to say that than the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much.
Okay. Other comments? Frank?
Go ahead, Frank.
You're next.
Thank you, Seth. My name is Frank Edelman, and I'm for District 6. And I'm also opposed to this resolution, and I'll be voting against it, and I urge others to do the same. I want to echo Frank Kemp and thank him for his words that there are many ways you can show your patriotism, and some of those are very public, like serving in this body or marching in the Memorial Day Parade, and some of them are very private, like what we teach our children about our country, or how we volunteer our time or make contributions of our own money. All these expressions of patriotism are very valid, but we should not be forcing an expression of patriotism literally into the mouths of our neighbors. It's invasive and it's aggressive. In the words of Yale professor Timothy Snyder, I am angry about the treacherous use of patriotic vocabulary. True patriotism is about more than waving flags and reciting slogans. It's a commitment to essential ideas and principles like liberty and fairness and equal justice for all. It's about acknowledging our flaws and our imperfections and working together to address them, not just through blind allegiances, but through reflection and meaningful action and debate like we have here now. Patriotism is very different from nationalism. This sort of performative patriotism in this resolution is really ugly nationalism. This is not patriotic, it's coercive. And to be clear, saying the pledge before the RTM meetings would not have changed even one member's vote on any other issue that we've voted on this year or any other vote we've had in the 16 years that I've been in this body. There's nothing wrong with the pledge when it's freely offered, and there's nothing wrong with teaching it to young children as part of civic education. But we're all adults here, we're not children. To David's point, we've already all sworn an oath when we joined this body. More conformist pledges are not going to make for better group decisions. In fact, I think it's the opposite. And remember, at older ages, students also learn about how the pledge was modified in the 50s as a tool to drive the shameful nationalist agenda of the right wing during the Red Scares and to blur the lines of church and state. Like every one of the public servants in this room, I'm devoted to my country too, and to my state and to my town, but not to the flag per se. And in this age of political polarization, allegiance to any symbol, even the flag, can be interpreted or misinterpreted in multiple ways. I think we would have been better off in not even considering this divisive measure at all. It strains my believability that this is really a priority for 50 of our electors in town. As a final note, the proponent of this measure said that this gives the opportunity to reaffirm our shared values, but in fact, we already have that opportunity. People can meet before the meeting to say the pledge together. You can meet for any other purpose together to align on what you think ought to happen on the agenda. People get together and pray together, and I support all that stuff happening outside the context of the meeting, but it doesn't belong on the agenda of the RTM. So if a vote must be had, I will vote no, and I ask you to join me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you.
Hi, thanks.
Rachel.
I'm Rachel Taylor, District 6. I did not prepare any remarks, was not intending to speak. However, after listening to the 3 or 4 prior speakers, I take a lot of opposition with what a lot of them said, most especially with the last speaker, Frank Edelman, who said something I want to correct on the record, which was that this motion is coercive, and I think you said, quote, puts the words into people's mouths.
Keep names out, please.
Sure. I think the original speaker who presented this motion said very clearly that it's optional. So that's point one. Point two, I heard a couple of the speakers make, which was that reciting the pledge would somehow change a vote outcome in our body, which is obviously legislative. I don't follow that logic at all. And if someone wants to clarify that point, feel free. But I don't.
She has the floor, please.
Yeah, so I take issue with that. And I guess what I would ultimately say is if we can't unify and understand that the flag represents all of us with liberty and justice for all, if we can't feel comfortable saying that on an optional basis, I don't really understand that. We all serve the town, we serve in multiple capacities, we all establish and reflect our patriotism in many ways. I don't view this as a cudgel or a way to divide. I view this as a very simple, elegant, traditional maybe you have issue with that, way to unify us. And if you don't like it, you can, of course, vote against it today. And if it passes, you can opt not to recite the pledge. I don't see the big issue. I take large issue with the prior comments. And I just felt like I needed to stand up and say that. So thank you. And I encourage you to vote to pass this resolution.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Others? Any other comments? Yes, Miss.
Hi there, I'm Emily Salmore, District 2. Excuse me, I'm very nervous right now. I don't have anything prepared. I too support this resolution. I think Miss Marks, who put this resolution forward, clearly stated that it is not mandatory to cite the Pledge of Allegiance, and I seriously hope that there is a silent majority, as there has been in many cases, amongst the vocal few that, in my opinion, try to shut others down. I fully support this motion. I hope everyone here will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Others? Yeah.
Good evening, all. I'm Harry McLachlan.
Welcome, Harry.
Welcome, Seth. I'm Harry McLachlan, District 5. Like Frank, I served in the military, was in the Navy and on a submarine, etc. And what has struck me, having been on the RTM close to 8 years or so, is the spirit of nonpartisanship that just permeates everything we do. And
a little bit louder, Harry.
Apologize. Okay. You can tell I don't do this very often. But since I've been on the RTM, I'm in committees and various things. Everything is there's just a spirit of nonpartisanship. And I fear that this, even bringing it up, I think the RTM has worked fine without this for years, and the spirit of nonpartisanship will stay the same. So I think it's put it this way, adding more potential divisiveness than patriotism. That's
Thank
my
you.
2 cents.
There's Peter.
Thank you. I'm Peter Orfanos, District 6. I'd like to stipulate 2 things. We all love the flag, and we all love our country. And I think we should all understand that. And I respect the motivations and intentions of our colleague from District 5, excuse me. However, I love the flag. If anybody sees me walking around town doing work either in the library or a coffee shop, I've got a flag in my backpack. It's featured prominently on my computer. 7 times I have taken an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States as an attorney and a public servant. However, for the following reasons, I concur with others who have previously discussed why we should not support the motion. I think it does violate the nonpartisan basis of the RTM, and I brought this up specifically at the rules meeting. And I think, frankly, given the difference in opinions that have been discussed here, that I have been proven true, that we have now embarked into an area that is fundamentally partisan in nature. I don't think we should be spending time on these issues. I also ask, why do we need this? I ask rhetorically to everyone here, with respect to unity, have we been experiencing disunity? Have we been experiencing some deficit in our feelings of allegiance for the flag where we must make up for it by publicly proclaiming our allegiance through the pledge? I also believe that the pledge is very important in building civic values, especially for our youth. And there is significant difference of opinion, and I think that we should think about one very important civic value, and that is accommodating the views of those that we disagree with, which is in many ways been lost in our country. We need to fight for those things that we don't believe in, and therefore I respectfully ask for, in the spirit of accommodation, that we do not support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, Christine.
So I'm unprepared as well. I just want to say, when I first learned about this resolution, I was in favor of it because I thought, oh, that's good, the children do it in the schools and I work in the school. But after discussing this and thinking about it more, I think that it's not a good thing for the reasons that people had said, that we are nonpartisan. And just hearing this meeting, you can see the divisiveness, and I think we need to avoid that so that we could work together. The other thing that I was concerned about, where somebody said, yeah, the pledge says, and under God, and some people may not believe in God, and then they're going to either be forced to say it and don't feel committed themselves, or be construed, if they don't say the pledge, as not being patriotic. So I'm just really concerned that people are taken, that we all are patriotic here. I don't think we have to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I like it in the school, okay, with the children, but I think that where people said that they take the oath, we all took the oath, and, you know, we're doing our due diligence. I think that I'm going to vote against this because of the reasons that people stated and that I've come to believe myself. The last thing about it is, and I wasn't really aware of this, that we're all on camera for these meetings. Now, say for example, today's my last day basically of my job. If we had to say the pledge today, coming in, just going to get my pink slip, my bosses are retiring, I may not be fully there. You know, I might be drifting off somewhere else thinking about, you know, the trauma or whatnot, or somebody has somebody in their family who may be dying, for example. If they're on camera and they're not really there with it, or they look like they don't have that kind of oomph to the pledge, we don't want this misconstrued as that they're not patriotic. So I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Ed?
Ed Washeka, District 3. This was actually my last RTM meeting. I actually left. I came back because I forgot this is on the agenda. Look, I respect what everyone's saying, but I don't see how the flag is a partisan issue. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. If you're American, and I recognize not everybody who lives in this town is, we should not have trouble pledging allegiance to the flag that is behind you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't see you there.
I'm Bill Van Loan.
Sorry, Bill, I just didn't.
I'm from District 6. I'd like to remind you all that on January 6, 2021, the then President Donald Trump orchestrated an insurrection on our
Sir,
Capitol.
that's out of line. Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. No, we're not interjecting politics into this. There's some reason that you're not going to, or going to support it, then that's fine. It's, now, under Robert's Rules of Order, that's not allowed in here. And under Appendix B, it's not allowed. Go ahead.
May I
Yeah,
speak?
yeah. You can speak. It's not a problem. You just can't introduce politics into this thing. Go ahead.
On January 6, 2021,
No.
where would you like me
If
to
you'd like to
begin?
talk about why you're going to favor this or not favor it, go ahead. But we're not going to introduce political history into this debate. It's
It
out of
involves
line.
the-
This
Mr.
body is
Moderator, it
nonpartisan
involves the
and
flag.
apolitical. Go ahead.
You saying I cannot talk about the insurrection?
You can talk about why you support or don't support the motion. It doesn't have anything to do with interjecting the current political climate.
I
into
do
this.
not support this voting for the Pledge of Allegiance because during the insurrection, 6 Capitol Police officers lost their lives, and these guys are all charging up the steps, waving the American flag like it was justified for their violence. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Tom?
Thank you. Tom Moore, District 3. I've been a member of this body for 29 years. And I've only missed 2 regular meetings in 29 years. So I'm pretty dedicated to it. Thank you. You all are great patriots. You come to the meetings. You do the town's business. This is really, really sad that we're having this. I'm making a motion to table this issue indefinitely.
Second. All right. Do we have a second? Second. Yes, okay. It's not debatable. So those of you who are in favor of tabling the motion, please rise. What? Yeah. It's a vote. Yeah, all right. Yeah. This is a regular vote. No votes, please. Voting against tabling. A no vote is to vote against tabling.
Yeah, okay.
Abstentions, excuse me, abstentions, please. This is, hey, Susan, welcome to. Okay, we have to get the results before I can move forward.
Rules tabled it, and now our people are not.
Yes.
The motion to table passes 42 to 30 with one abstention. So we're on to the next item.
Seth, I have a question.
Yes?
If 50 electors in the town signed a petition, doesn't that motion deserve an up or down vote?
No. It's
Just a question.
the answer to your question is that the petition puts it on the agenda without a vote. It goes on the agenda.
Okay, so.
And once it's on the agenda, it's up for debate.
Okay. So does not deserve an up or down vote?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 12.24, speaking on behalf of the Rules Technology Committee, Lois Schneider.
Good evening, I'm Lois Schneider, District 1, and Chair of the RTM Rules Technology Committee. I move Resolution 24-32 to start monthly RTM meetings at 7:30 p.m. May I have a second? Jenny? With no objections, I'll waive the reading of the resolution. This resolution is before us as the Rules Committee on June 3rd voted 9-2 to put the idea of starting the RTM meetings at 7:30 up for a vote by the full RTM. Some background on this resolution. The Rules Committee periodically reviews the start time of RTM meetings. At the April 8th Rules meeting, we discussed the concept of starting the RTM meetings at 7:30, which had been mentioned by various RTM members. The ideas behind starting earlier are the expectation that the meetings would end earlier, and many committees started earlier. The rules decided to do a non-binding poll of members to see if this idea was of interest and worth pursuing. At the committee's request, a short electronic start time survey was developed by the Rules Technology Committee and the town clerk, thank you, Krista, and distributed to all RTM members on April 23rd. 91 out of our 97 members responded to the survey. Thank you all so very much. The results: 48% preferred 7:30 start time, 20% preferred an 8 p.m. start time, and 32% were open to either. 3 people said they would not be able to serve on the RTM if we start earlier due to their commitments, and for that, we are sorry. With this result, the Rules Committee decided at the June 3rd meeting, as I said, with a 9-2 vote, that the change in start time should be considered at the June 17th RTM meeting and put to a vote by the full RTM. The resolution before you tonight provides changing the time to 7:30, beginning with the new RTM session in November 2024 at the RTM annual meeting. And part of the reason for that was that anyone running in August would know that the meetings will start at 7:30 p.m., so we're all starting at the same place. Thank you for consideration of this issue.
Thank you, Lois. Here we go. There were no committees assigned to this other than the Technology Committee, which is a Rules Committee. But are there any members of the body who wish to speak on this? I see none. Electors of the town? No, it looks like you're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Item 24-29, Clean Energy, passed 70 in favor, 1 no, 2 abstentions. No votes, please. Abstentions? Thanks for sticking around here while we find out when we're really going to start, what time we're going to really start meeting. I want to congratulate everybody for being here tonight. We had a full boat, and you know, with school getting out, it could have been let's say a less than full boat. So it's great that you were all here tonight. All right. So the motion to have a 7:30 p.m. start time passes. 51 in favor, 12 no, 4 abstentions. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Oh, so many. There we go, Susan. All in favor, please rise.